Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today. My name is Jenna,
My name is Hannah.
and joining us today, we have another music therapist. Hannah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I am currently a music therapist working in primarily school settings. Yeah, that's I guess my name and what I'm doing.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Hannah, can you tell us a little bit about the early stages of music therapy for you? So finding about what music therapy is, finding a college that fit you, that process of applying to college, how that was for you.
Yeah, when I had never heard about music therapy before I found music therapy. I sort of knew that I wanted to go into a helping profession of some sort, but I definitely did not want to be a nurse. I didn't want to be a doctor. It just that was not for me. So it's like, okay, well, that's kind of out, which is a big chunk of helping profession in my mind. And I also didn't want to give up music, which had been such a big part of my career. So I mean, I've been playing piano since I was 7. I've played other instruments, and I really just didn't want to give that up. And I felt like if I went to school, I was like, it's just going to fall by the wayside. So I was like, okay, how can I combine the two of those things? And I just doing some Google searches. I was like, music and helping people, and like what could come up. And then I stumbled across AMTA and music therapy, and I was like, wait a second, this sounds really cool. And so I did some more research, so started to look at schools, and just kind of the more research that I did, just really enjoyed it. So then I was obviously looking at schools. I'm from New York State, so there was not a lot of options for undergrad. So I ended up at SUNY Fredonia, which was a wonderful experience. Yeah, I really enjoyed that time there. It was for me the only school that I applied to. I just kind of knew that I wanted to go, and I was like, this is for me. And thank goodness I got in, because I did not have a backup plan. So I was very, very fortunate for me. I definitely had a more easy process than most for applying for colleges. I know that a lot of people, that's a big part of just struggling to get into the field, is college is not accessible to everybody. So very thankful that I had that opportunity, and especially at Fredonia with all of the experience that I had.
Yeah. What is something that you really, really loved about your college experience, and something that maybe you would change if you could do it again, or would want to see continue to grow in undergraduate programs?
Yeah, I really enjoyed just the wide variety um, of things that I saw on my campus, as well as just in my music therapy program. So I was in a very small class. I think there were only 13 of us or so, roughly.
Yeah.
It was really nice to just grow as a team together. I feel like we did so many things together. We were constantly in communication. So I really appreciated that about going to school, especially in my degree program. Just being able to ask questions if we didn't understand, or having someone to study with, and just kind of, okay, I'm having these issues. Can you help me? Especially as a like developing practicums with clinical partners too, and just really developing those relationships. I know some of my first clinical partners I'm still very close friends with today, and we talk about clinical things, and we're constantly trying to help each other out. So I think just the camaraderie of my college program was something I really, really enjoyed. Something I would want to change or see grow, I guess. I mean, there's always ways to improve on a college program. There's so many institutional stereotypes and privileges that inhibit other people from, I mean, being in programs like ours. So I think just being able to expand our field, especially expand to different college students and different teenagers who are looking into music therapy, making it more accessible, making those college programs more accessible, and that's more of a institutional thing rather than a music therapy thing. But that's something that always kind of sits heavy on my mind. Something I want to see grow. I just love seeing music therapy grow just in general, I guess. So seeing more people come in, more young professionals, seeing diverse young professionals come in, and having the field be more expansive. We're a very white, female presenting dominant field, and that's just kind of how it is right now. So hopefully advertising and being able to reach out to those lesser communities, so we have representation in the field, that people can reach out to other communities that we don't have great access to right now.
Can you talk a little bit about how you found your niche area practicing music therapy? If there was certain orientations that really stuck out to you going through college, and kind of how that worked at Fredonia, if you felt like there was ones that were really focused on, or if it was kind of a lot that were presented and you got to really choose your own.
Yeah. I think at Fredonia, a wide variety of approaches were presented to me. I definitely learned about so many of this. I'm sure, Jenna, you can attest to this. We went to schools together. So I think that was really beneficial. While so many of those were talked about, I did feel like Fredonia, based on just the professors there and the supervisors, were focused on like almost a neurological, very behavioral type of approach, which for me personally, I identify, like, I agree with some of those things, and there's some things I'm like, I don't really love how this works with other approaches. So for me personally, I kind of take a mix of a lot of things. I guess it's a very eclectic approach, and maybe it would fit into one definition really great. Definitions are not my strong suits, but I really like the idea of a holistic approach, just looking at a whole person for what they are and everything that comes with that, whether that's behavioral, cognitive, developmental, personality, your physical ability or disability, or everything that you are a person, and everything that comes with that you offer and bring to the world in the therapy space. So that's kind of what I look at when I'm looking at a client. Yeah, does that answer your question? I think so.
Yeah, kind of moving forward to sort of towards internship at the end of the undergraduate experience. What was your internship experience like? What was the process like applying and deciding where to go? Was that something that you like felt really strongly about, or just kind of got thrown into it?
For me, internship applying was very scary. I felt like I really didn't know what I wanted to do because I had so many interests at the time and so many things. It's like, I haven't had experience in these things, and that would be really cool, but I've also had experience in this, and I know I really like it. So where do I go and what do I do? It's just very overwhelming. So I ended up applying to a couple different types of sites, a pediatric hospital, a school setting, and I was also trying to look into like a memory care, end of life hospice. So I gave myself a really broad range, which I think helped, that I knew wherever I ended up, I would have something that either I enjoyed or I was going to learn something new. And that kind of helped settle my mind a little bit. The process of applying definitely was daunting. And I think for a lot of undergrad music therapists, it's very daunting. It's terrifying to look at a whole list that you can get and be like, where do I go next? And there's so many factors to think about. For me, location was not the biggest importance, which was kind of I guess, a blessing in some ways and a curse in some other ways. So things that were important to me, I love new experiences and I love to just learn. So that was something I just wanted to have that option, which I was glad that I gave myself those options. Also, just trying to fill out applications and figuring out, okay, what kind of answers are they looking for, and how am I going to represent myself on a piece of paper or in like 2 or 3 songs that I'm singing, and how do I make sure that my musicianship is accurately represented, and all of those different things that come with applying. It was definitely overwhelming, but thankfully we have the power to do recordings and try things again and make mistakes, and mistakes are okay, and mistakes are okay in music therapy. It happens in the music therapy world. So I think just recognizing that even if I make a mistake, whatever, it's life. It's just, I'll just keep going, and hopefully that shows them that I'm flexible. So after applying for everything, my long-winded answer for that, I ended up in a pediatric hospital in Dayton, Ohio. Went to Dayton Children's Hospital, and it was a very rewarding experience to be there and have a new experience. I had never done any sort of practice in a medical setting before, especially a pediatric medical setting, no less. So it was eye-opening to see what goes on in a hospital and what goes on in a kid's room, when who's coming in and out, and what my role is in that room. It was just like, wow, I am a very, very small piece of this large picture. And some days that was like, okay, I'm such a small piece. Do I really matter? And I kind of went back and forth some days. And at the end of the day, you go into a kid's room and they just light up when they see you, or they're very excited, or you're able to give them some peace of mind and you can see their body relax. And it's just, those are the moments that were really, really impactful, especially in my internship. I just very rewarding as far as just having those experiences, I guess.
What do you feel like was the most impactful thing, or a way you grew the most in your internship?
Yeah, during my internship, I felt like there were so many things because it was so new that I really was like, wow, I didn't realize that I was getting better at this. And at the end, just reflecting back saying, wow, I didn't realize I was growing in all these ways, but now here I am and I have all these things that I can do. So I think the one that stuck out the most to me was just being able to adapt to different situations, especially in a pediatric hospital. I never knew what I was going to walk into in a room. I was mentally prepared for one thing, and then I walk in a room, I'm like, wow, this is not how I thought this was going to go. And just having to do a complete 180 in a room on the spot. And obviously I'm not going to be like, oh, just kidding, I'll see you later. Like, yeah, I'm not going to do that in a room. So being flexible, both in my mindset and in my musical presentation, being able to calm my body, to be able to calm my music was such an important part for me. Yeah, so just adapting, I guess, is the best word. If I had to put it in one word, adapting to a situation.
Yeah, I think I also did my internship in a children's hospital, and I would agree with you that I think is something that anybody who works in a hospital, especially a children's hospital, could say of just, you have no idea any day or any situation that you're about to encounter.
Yes, for sure.
Can you talk a little bit about being in a hospital and how you're moving around? A lot of times, what do you find is really important to take with you whenever you go? And how do you travel around with that?
Yeah. So the hospital I was at was actually very blessed in that during COVID, they had asked for these carts to carry everything around with. And that was the most convenient thing that I have ever had. All my instruments, I was able to use one of my supervisor's carts, and I traveled around with her, and eventually on my own, I took her cart with me, but it had a couple drawers, and then like two drawers on the top full of like small instruments, trinkets, anything that I needed. So like an iPad or paper, any notes, brochures to hand to families, things like that. And then in the bottom, it had two doors which opened, and it had some bigger instruments. I had a wide variety of drums and tambourines, and I had a triangle, a little small portable keyboard. So just essential kind of percussion and just melodic instruments of wide varieties. And then outside on either end of the cart, we were able to strap a guitar and a full size, I think a full size, I don't remember, but a larger keyboard to either side of the cart to be able to travel with that. For kids, I mean, music therapists, we use our guitar all the time. I feel like that's most everyone's primary instrument in this field. So it's very convenient to be able to not have to carry it on my back or just carry it in a case. It was easily accessible. If I heard someone, I could just grab it real quick and run into a room.
That sounds awesome. So can you talk, moving past internship, the end of our internship, as we're going back into the profession now, and we're young professionals, we have to take the CBMT exam. Can you talk a little bit about preparing for that? Is that something that when you were at your internship that your supervisors were helping you prepare for? Were you doing it independently? How were you studying for that? What was most helpful for you?
Yeah, I was very fortunate in that my supervisors were helpful, and they, through funding that they had, were able to purchase a practice exam for me. So, and we talked through it. We said, okay, why is this answer not at all what I thought it was? I mean, those of us who have taken the CBMT exam, we know that like the answer is just, it's like, it's not what I would do, but I guess technically that's what it is. So I was very fortunate in that I was helped to some extent by my supervisors during my internship. And then obviously I did some outside study on my own. I think that's helpful for anybody, especially a big as an exam as the CBMT exam is. I found that just rereading some of the newer handbooks that are being used in undergrad. So I think the new music therapist handbook, it's on like the third edition now, I think. Going over the assessment and termination chapters were some of the biggest helps to me, especially in undergrad. We get very, very short experiences with assessment and termination. And for those of us who went through COVID, sometimes we didn't even get termination. I remember my first practicum, Jenna can attest to this. We did not get to do termination with any of our clients. And it was frustrating to not have that closure. So just rereading some of those things and refreshing my mind and saying, okay, if I was in this scenario, what would I do? What are some guidelines for those sorts of things? So I did a lot of rereading just general chapters, and then also reviewing some basic music therapy terms and definitions. So like just different types of approaches, making sure I understand what it means. If you take a cognitive behavioral approach, what does that mean? And what do you do if you're in that approach? Different definitions like apraxia and ataxia and all those A definitions that I'm like, I don't know what these mean, but I have to know what these mean. So I think those were the things that helped me prepare.
What are some tips that you would have for somebody who might be preparing for the exam now, or things that you wish you knew before going into that exam room that can be really helpful?
My biggest tip is to be confident in yourself. Even if you think that you're not a good test taker, or you know that you're not a good test taker, tests freak you out, you have a lot more power in yourself than sometimes our minds lead us on to believe. I know I had a lot of friends who it was hard to go through the exam. It was hard for me to take the exam, but I just found that taking a second and being like, okay, I know I'm struggling with this question, but I'm still a strong music therapist. The test does not define our practice in any way. That's something that I really strongly believe in, that it truly is just a test. And that doesn't mean that you're a great music therapist or you're a really bad music therapist if you fail multiple times. It doesn't reflect on your practice. It just it's a very certain way of thinking. And I'm glad that we do have the exam to sort of just make sure that we understand basics of our profession and just some general outlines. I think that's really helpful, but just, you got to believe in yourself. And sometimes it takes a long time, and it just kind of is, you just keep doing it and you keep plugging away, and just confidence is key in that situation, I think. As far as for me going into the exam, I felt like I had so many friends who took it before me that were telling me all these things, and I felt like I really knew what I was going to walk into. I guess I wasn't prepared for how small my specific testing center was going to be. And I think I was a little freaked out. I was like, I'm literally in a little box, and it was sort of freaked out in the moment, but obviously every testing center is a little different. So that's just more of a personal, like, whoa, I'm really in a small confined space with a couple other people that I've never met before for this amount of time. So that was a little overwhelming, I think, but yeah.
I think the guy next to me when I took mine was taking a plumbing exam. And that to me was like, what?
Yeah, definitely a wide variety of things that you see in a testing center. It's not just us there. So I think that was, yeah, I would agree with you. Just whoa.
Yeah, I think especially for people who have never like had to take a test in a testing center before, which was my case, I'd never had to
Yeah.
before. I don't think I realized that it could be literally anyone taking any kind of test in a testing center. On a similar vein, kind of, in terms of looking for a job, was it something where you had a job before you took the exam, or you took the exam and then went job searching?
Yeah, I was able to accept the job with the stipulation that I had passed the exam by a certain number of days after I took my job. So I had a job before I officially was board certified in that position.
Are you back in New York now, or are you somewhere else?
Yes, I am back in New York. So I did my internship in Ohio, and when I found a job back in New York. So after my internship in Ohio, I moved back to New York. So now I'm back in my home state, which is very convenient for a lot of reasons.
So for living in New York, then, do you have to deal with all of the licensure LCAT situation?
My position currently does not have to deal with the LCAT certification. I'm sure if I was in a different setting, that would be something I would really have to look into. I think a lot of times in school districts, especially for New York State, it's not as imperative that you have that certification. If I was to go somewhere like in a mental health setting, or I mean a psychiatric center, or any sort of strictly therapy counseling center, that probably would be more LCAT inclined. But because I'm going to school districts, it's not required, for at least for my position and company at this time.
Yeah. Going back to the job searching, in terms of looking for your first job or any job that you've had since then, what was it like kind of going through that process of looking for a job and interviewing, things like that?
I found looking for a job very overwhelming, because I didn't really know where I wanted to live. I didn't know where I could afford to live. if I wanted to stay in pediatrics or go somewhere else again. And it was sort of like my internship process all over again. And I was like, wow, I'm in the same position and I don't know what I want to do. So I just started with, okay, I just did my internship in a pediatric hospital and I really, really loved it. Okay, where can I go for another pediatric hospital? Is it livable in that city? Can I afford to live there? Unfortunately, a lot of big cities with pediatric hospitals are very expensive. So that was kind of like, not so much. I still applied, didn't really hear back from anybody, which obviously is disappointing for any job applicant to not hear back. But just try for some stuff. So I tried for that. And then I was like, okay, I can't just apply for one job like I did for my college career. So I need to have some sort of option. So just looking at, okay, what other careers for music therapists are very popular? And obviously, I mean, for me, I don't know where your guys' work is, but school settings is very popular, especially across New York State. I think that's one of the biggest populations that music therapists serve as a whole. It's more widely known in schools, I think. So it's like, okay, I enjoyed my school experience that I had in my practicum in undergrad, so maybe I could look into that. And I applied to a couple different schools. So yeah, just giving myself some options was really helpful. And then I ended up taking a position in Albany, and with a school district, I did a lot of driving, a lot of traveling. I think that's very common for school positions, school-based music therapists. Ended up not loving that position, realizing very quickly into that job that I was like, okay, I don't love this. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not really sure what to do. Should I just stick it out? Should I wait? And I actually was very fortunate to have an internship supervisor that I had interviewed with, but not accepted the position, reach out to me and be like, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? And we're looking to expand our team. And what's your job looking like? And it was just kind of this golden opportunity that just fell into place for me. So transferred to where I am now in Syracuse, New York, and I'm in another school-based music therapy job. And it's just the company as a whole has a lot more things that I find that I align myself with, and it just seemed like a better fit for me. So yeah, job hopping, especially now our day and age with our generations, don't be afraid to job hop. If you're not happy, you have to take care of yourself, especially as therapists. We're dealing so much with the lives of other people that sometimes it's hard to remember at the end of the day, we're still a person who's living in her own body, who has her own mind, has her own feelings. So just remembering that if you don't take care of yourself, you're gonna be so burnt out so quickly, extending yourself to other people. So just not being afraid to job hop and take care of yourself.
Can you share a little bit about the work you do as a music therapist now, in terms of I know you mentioned working primarily in school-based positions, but what kind of stands out to you as you kind of reflect on your music therapy career and some things you've learned along the way so far?
Yeah, being a school-based music therapist has so many interesting scenarios that you come across that I never really thought I would come across. I had the opportunity to work with both large classroom groups and just one-on-one individual sessions. So I think that was kind of eye-opening. I never thought going into school that I was going to do music therapy in a classroom, much less music therapy in a classroom to help one specific kid in the classroom in that larger setting. Or just music therapy benefits this class as a whole. So they're all going to get music therapy as a class. And it was like, wow, this is not what I thought I was going in for. But it ended up being really rewarding, just looking at how kids interact with each other, how they talk to each other, how they interact with me as a class and as an individual. So now is a little bit less group based, but I've picked up a lot of individual caseloads, which has been really helpful. My kids primarily fall somewhere on the autism spectrum, but also have a number of other diagnoses, whether that's medical or cognitive, developmental. There's so many different things that I see on a day-to-day basis. So it's really kind of eye-opening to just see in a school, especially a special ed focused school, what's going on and what their classroom looks like, and how many of my students have a one-on-one aid that comes with them to a session. I think that was also eye-opening to see that in a classroom, especially talking about if you're in a 8 to 1+1 classroom. So there's 8 kids, 1 teacher, and sometimes you might have one aide, sometimes you might have one aide per 8 students. And it just, that was kind of interesting to see too, that it wasn't just stereotypical, one teacher, you got a room full of kids and that's how it is. It's just, I've never worked in special ed before, so that was just kind of a eye-opening and exciting thing to see that, especially with the TAs, just they had that support.
It kind of prompts me to ask another one that we didn't necessarily plan for. In terms of being a music therapist, specifically in a school setting with teachers and with aides, how do you find sort of working with individuals and professionals that aren't music therapists or aren't therapists in general, even though they might have similar training in some areas?
Mhm.
What do you find is really beneficial and what is unique and sometimes maybe something you didn't expect?
In school-based music therapy, well, you have a meeting that's called an annual review, and then you have all the team members come there. So occupational, physical, speech therapy are all there. The classroom teacher's there. Hopefully a parent ideally is there. Your board of special ed is there, all those people. So
I was mostly curious about like working, well, now that you've said that too, in terms of potential co-treats with other kinds of therapists, if that happens in your work too, but also working in a school-based setting with teachers and with aides who might not necessarily have, they have similar training, but not necessarily the same. What kind of experiences have, like, when you reflect back on it, had been really prominent, or is that something that came easily to you or was a little challenging?
So I think a lot of working with teachers in classrooms specifically is being able to do education on what music therapy is, because I think this goes for anybody, not just young professionals and not just people in the world, but music therapy kind of, you hear the word music therapy, you go, oh, I listen to music that I like, maybe that's music therapy. So getting a chance to really tell teachers and other professionals what our job is and why it's important that we are board certified and we have our training that we do, and why we take music classes, why we do all of these things. So being able to educate teachers, speech, PT, OT, and then being able to educate parents as well and be like, okay, this is why your child is receiving music therapy, because we see X, Y, and Z, and they're benefiting and they can really grow. The music offers them that support to enhance their education and their lives and all these sorts of things. So in terms of working with other professionals, just that, I think that education is the biggest part. I have not done a lot of code treating. I'm trying to think back if I have done a lot of that. I was able to do a lot of coach reading actually in my internship, just with occupational therapy specifically. We had a really good relationship with them on multiple units in the hospital. So we would try to tag team some of the things. Some kids were really motivated by music and maybe not so much by just, okay, I need to practice how to tie my shoes. Okay, if we can make it fun, make it a song, do that sort of co-treat. Yes, we're working on sort of the same things, but we can address different minuscule things at the same time. So co-treating in that aspect was really exciting and kind of eye-opening to see what other professions also bring to the music therapy space. Sometimes they have ideas and you're like, oh, I never thought of that. That's a really cool way to show you how to hold your mallet or how to hold a spoon. So I think that was cool. Now I don't really work with a lot of other professionals. It's sort of very, you go to this and then you go to this and then you go to this, and they don't really, because of the driving nature of my job, I don't really see a lot of other therapists, but being able to talk to them, especially during annual re-meetings, and get to know what they're working on, I think is a good way to collaborate with them.
Switching gears a little bit now, and talking about continuing ed and recertification, can you talk about if there's any that you've done so far, or if there's any that you have started looking into that you're excited to check out in the future, and what you think will benefit you the most during this time? If that's going to conferences, if it's taking college courses again, if it's going online and reading something.
I am a very newly certified professional. I was just certified last month, actually, so very, very new to me. So I haven't had a chance to really delve into the world of certification. I have started looking just to kind of wrap my head around the idea. It's a very overwhelming process for sure, especially as a new professional. We kind of touch on it in undergrad and it's like, okay, now go to your internship and take the exam and you'll get there eventually.
Mm.
I've been sort of just trying to see what's online that I can do from my home that's accessible to me, especially just we live in a world, especially this music therapy profession, it's really not accessible to a lot of people. So trying to find accessible things for recertification that are cost effective for me, that are time effective for me. I actually recently purchased a course. It's about music and music therapy and technology. So, and not in the sense of like GarageBand or how to use platforms like that. I don't. It's more technology in the focus of social media. So how do we use different platforms and technology in that way?
Mm.
So I guess we could say music therapy and social media instead of technology. I guess that'd be a better way to put it. The program, I'll give a little shout out, is sponsored or I guess developed by a company called Music for Kiddos. You could
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
Google that. I don't know if you guys, familiar with that. Recently found them. So I haven't really started the course yet. I was just able to purchase it, but they go through just a basic outline of like, okay, all these platforms that we can use. How do we advertise music therapy as a business, as a sole proprietor, I mean, all those sorts of things. So that's really the only recertification, like continuing education credit that I've looked into so far. I haven't really been to a lot of music therapy conferences. I think going to school during COVID really inhibited that for me. I've been to a couple of mini conferences at Nazareth College, which was really awesome just to hear from other professionals and what they use in their sessions and meet some other students who are learning different things and learning different theoretical approaches than I am and getting to talk with them. So hopefully in the future, being able to attend some larger conferences and get some credits that way. I'm also just a very big introvert and I love to just stick my nose in a book and I'll get it this way. And that's okay for me. I don't really need to be crazy out there and doing all this stuff, but I don't really have anything else to say. I thought I did, but that's it.
I know that when we were in college together that you played a lot of piano, you were a accompanist for many people. I'm not sure if that's something that you still do, but can you talk about that a little bit and using that side of music as well? And how do you still enjoy music for yourself outside of music therapy, is kind of touching on self-care as well. I know that's like a lot of questions all in one.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I really, really enjoyed the collaborative piano that I did in undergrad, and I am hoping to reach out to a few local colleges in the area and start getting back into that. I would love to go back to school and pursue that as a master's degree. That's something I've always thought about, and I've had professors at Fredonia say, "Oh, you should really do this." I'm like, I know, but I have other things that I need to do first before I get there. So that's just something for me as a musician that I really enjoyed and is almost a self-care thing for me. It's just getting that collaborative piece on that professional level. I've loved that teamwork, and it's such a different kind of teamwork, especially in a one-on-one setting, say with a vocalist. I mean, I was very fortunate in my time at Fredonia to have really great relationships with my vocalists, and we were friends. We're still friends, even though we're not working together, and we have dreams of hopefully working together again one day. But I think just trying to keep in touch, especially with the piano as it is my primary instrument, has been difficult in some ways and rewarding in other ways. I find that because I'm school-based music therapist, I don't really use the piano a ton unless a location has a piano. I don't travel with a keyboard. It's very heavy for me to travel with. I have too many other things to carry. So unless a kiddo is specifically requesting it and I can access one, I really am not using it. So finding ways in my personal life to make up for that and keep in touch with the piano. I've recently started going back and looking at collaborative things that I was working on or things that I might need for grad school. Getting in touch with music that way has been really important for me as a musician in general. And then also remembering in my day-to-day work that I'm still a person and I need to listen to the music that I like and not just kids' music all day and just random songs that I sing with every kid that I have, and they get stuck in your head. But just taking a second, especially in my car, to feel like, okay, I need a break from this one song, so I'm going to listen to the song that I really love and just kind of bring myself back as a just remembering that music is still something that I can access for me and not just something that I'm giving to everyone else.
Kind of going to music therapy and the profession as a whole, where do you think the profession is going in the future, and what would you like to see more of? How do you think that the profession can continue to grow as we kind of go forward?
Yeah, I think I've touched on this at various points in the interview, but just really working on trying to diversify our profession in any way that's possible, whether that is queer music therapists of color, I mean, music therapists with different abilities and or disabilities. I mean, we're such a specific demographic in our profession that there has to be some sort of change. People, I mean, you have to have representation, especially when you're working with such a wide population and wide variety of populations who have all these different things. I mean, it's so helpful just in certain situations to see someone that looks like you. I mean, if we look at, I mean, just life situations, and we look at the Little Mermaid live action that was just created, having someone that was a woman, like a woman of color, just be represented in that way, which is mind blowing for the whole world. And nobody really expected that, I feel like. And it was so encouraging. I mean, I'm sure we all saw TikToks of little girls just being like, she looks like me, and a princess looks like me. And it's so important for people to see things that ways that they are also represented in the world. So I think music therapy as a whole, I don't know how it's going to happen. I haven't really thought about all of that sort of thing, but at some point we're going to get there, and it's going to change in that way, I would hope. I mean, complete flip 180, we're looking at how AMTA is kind of like no one really knows what's going on and everything that has happened in the past, and figuring out either a new or a revised way that music therapists have a sense of community and have a sense of, okay, there are other music therapists in the world besides me and the 6 or 12 or 20 people that I work with. It's hard for us to reach out sometimes, and maybe once I go to conference, maybe my view will be different on that. I mean, have all these music therapists coming together, but having some sort of body or representation of some sort that supports us in our profession, has resources for us, has accessible everything for us. So, and just is responsible with us as professionals, and responsible with the people that we work with and the language that they use and all of those sorts of things. So I guess that's another thing that I would hope to change and hope that would grow in the future. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all of our questions. Do you have any other ones, Hannah? You good? Okay. So thank you again for joining us. This has been great.
Yeah.
Before we end things, is there anything else that you would like to add in that we didn't ask questions about yet?
I don't think so. I felt like it was very comprehensive, and I was able to touch on a lot of things. So thank you guys for the opportunity too, to just give my little blurb.
Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you around.